Okay, good afternoon everybody and welcome to this Harvard lecture. My name is Béla Soltész, many of you know me. I'm really happy to be the moderator of today's session because we have a really special guest from Ecuador, Professor Andrea Endara, who is from the Casa Grande University, Guayaquil. And her stay with us is really important and interesting for us for two reasons. One is because we have an Erasmus partnership with this university in Ecuador. So this is not the first and not the last visit from professors of Casa Grande University. And second, because the topic that you're researching is just great. So I'm really looking forward to hear about your presentation, about the cultural content coming from the global south and coming from the non-Western and non-English speaking countries that may turn into some sort of soft power for these countries. So without further delay, I would like to give the floor to Andrea, who is the coordinator of the political science program at Casa Grande University. We will have this class approximately 90 minutes, including the questions and answers. There will be time for questions and answers in the end, so in case you have anything to ask, please write it down, and there will be plenty of time to discuss after the presentation. We are doing a voice recording that will be made public on the YouTube channel of ELTE's Latin America Research Center, but only the voice, so you will not be on the video. And I'm going to circulate one attendance sheet that is for the sake of this Erasmus administration, so please write your name and sign it. Thank you so much, Andrea, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. So we're going to talk a little bit of everyone. Does everyone hears me? Yes? Perfect. Maybe you think that every choice you make, the playlist you use this morning for shower, the research you made today in Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, or whichever app you use for entertainment is something sporadic that has nothing to do with what happened in our world. But that choice is something important. So today we're going to talk about power, culture, and resistance. We are going to have like a big space to talk about Bad Bunny. Someone here knows about Bad Bunny, or is like strange for you? What do you know about Bad Bunny?
Well, he's basically the biggest Spanish-speaking pop star in our age.
Okay. Do you hear him? His music?
Yeah.
Yes? Perfect. So, just for a minute, think, what did you watch, listen, or share in the last 24 hours? Think, and maybe someone want to share it with us. Maybe you share a political meme. We have this say in Ecuador that our grandmas and our aunts send, I don't know how do you know him here, but in Ecuador it's Violin, and in United States it's Tweety, this yellow canary from Looney Tunes.
Judy.
That. So that's how we say we refer to our aunts that always share things on WhatsApp, and maybe some of them are political. Someone want to share with us, what do you listen, what do you view, watch?
Today when I'm preparing to come to university, I usually do like Instagram reels,
Okay.
where I hear about some political stuff, and there was a rant video about Bad Bunny not being American, and no, it's not true.
Yes.
And the whole scandal, if I could say that, is about he will be attending the Super Bowl halftime show, and there's a big debate about is he allowed to be in this show or not? And for example, this is what I heard about today.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk more about it, but This is like the biggest scandal in United States because it goes against everything the MAGA movement is preaching and is trying to establish in the United States. Someone else?
Last night I watched the series called The Diplomat on Netflix. I don't know if you saw it.
Part of it. I didn't finish it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. And there's like also many action stuff in there. So I think it's really easy to catch someone's attention with it.
Yeah, and in that particular series, they try to impose or to show how American or United States diplomats and politics should be, and that everyone else should follow those politics. So, welcome to Pop Geopolitics, where culture is a battleground for global power. First of all, what is geopolitics? Pop Geopolitics, I'm sorry. Someone want to share what do you think it is, Pop Geopolitics? Also, you have it in the background. No? Well, here are interconnected three things: power, culture, and identity. It's the study of how popular culture reflects, shapes, and contests international relations. If we talk about that, we're going to talk about soft power, but soft power maybe is what we use or what we want to use to, or what the country want to use to obtain something from other countries or other populations. Pop geopolitics, it's the instrument or the vehicle to obtain those results. And we are going to start like really easy with this classic allegory that is Star Wars. Does you have someone watch? I hope so. Star Wars. Someone really likes Star Wars. You?
Yeah.
So, what do you like about Star Wars?
It's different because there are the first three, the second three, and the third three movies,
Mm-hmm.
and I think every one of these three groups is different.
Yes.
It's different what it's about, and also it's a lot of series and everything, and
Yeah, but even though these like three different parts are different, the core is the same. You have two sides. It's really simple. It's a moral battle. Like the empire that is this conservative, probably white man that wanna control everything, versus the rebellion that it's like a lot of people from different backgrounds, different forms. It's multicultural, multi-ethnical, and they wanna obtain freedom. But for them, it's kind of difficult, and you have this evil versus the good side of the country, or the good side of the empire that you wanna, and it's a reflection at first for the Cold War, and I forgot what I was going to say. Well, basically, that the rebellious side, it's like a wing to the democratic view of politics. But then we have something more recent, that is Game of Thrones. And this is a masterclass of political realism or international relations realism. Why? Because there are complex alliances, resource competition, and global finances. And if we want to compare both of them, we have to search some criteria. First, the politics of place. First, in Star Wars, how is the place or the battlefield? Someone want to share it with me? No? Don't worry. So, in politics of place, we have a clear binary section, an oppressive empire versus this small group of different people that wanna be free. But in Game of Thrones, we have a big map that represents different regions, complex regions that want different things, and also are competing for the power. And while they are competing for power, or they are competing for this throne, they don't see the real problem, or the real problem that are big things that's why they said winter is coming. And they have a border that maybe we have a wing to that border here in our world, in United States. And Trump, can you?
The Mexican wall?
Yeah, the Mexican wall that are preventing from the migrants to come. And there are other topics that we should talk about, and they should talk about, but they are just thinking in short spaces and in power. Well, we have to talk about climate change, about migration, and the creation of the other that it's the enemy, and that's why in the MAGA culture, the MAGA side of Donald Trump, we talk about these aliens that are the migrants. Then we have the politics of presence. In Star Wars, we have, as I already said, the Empire versus the Rebel Alliance. How do they see? Maybe the Empire is big. It looks like sometimes like very monochromatic. The stormtroopers doesn't have a face. They are all the same. While the real alliance is a multi-species. And now let's talk about Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones have it represents the moral ambiguity. There are different factions that are working against each other, and if in Star Wars you know what is the interest of each character, in Game of Thrones it is more difficult. Think of Daenerys Targaryen. She at first maybe is the one that save people, take out people from slavery, but then she, after she was this big revolutionary leader, she ends like she ends like a tyrant, and it shows how some countries or some political leaders use this rhetoric to obtain power, but they don't have legitimate and good intentions with the population. Then we have the currency of power. In Star Wars, we have this conflict between an ideological conviction and a moral strength of what is good and what is right, while in Game of Thrones, as I already said, the power is complex and a shipping tapestry that you have to really read in between lines to understand what they want and what is the right option. They have to combine soft power and hard power, or as some people might say, smart power to obtain what you really want. And finally, the underlying message, that is ideology. In Star Wars, we already said it's really clear the morality of American idealism, while in Game of Thrones we have a cynical realism and warnings, more like an anarchic place where everyone is working and against each other instead of cooperating together. So, what is soft power? That is the main focus or the main concept we're gonna use through this lecture. It was coined by Joseph Nye, and it's the ability to influence attraction and not coercion. We use culture, we use values, we use policies. And instead of using an army, we use the power of culture and foreign policies. It's the power to make people want what you really want. Instead of coercing them to do what you want, you convince them and make them think that it's their idea. So, how pop geopolitics works with soft power? First, it sets norms and aspirations. Think we're going to talk about it with Hollywood, but think about the American dream, the white fence with the dog and the happy family. That's something that that's desirable by, I don't know here, but at least in Latin America, that's the dream. The dream for everyone, and that's why many of us Latin Americans try to go to live in United States besides the political and immigration policies. Then you try to build familiarity and empathy by creating a share of community and humanity between what you see and what the population wants. Then you have also you want to project national identity and values, what is good, what is wrong. In the case of Hollywood, it becomes like cultural ambassadors of what United States want you to believe. And also creates diplomatic and economic openings. Think in South Korea and the Hallyu Wave. How it starts with maybe BTS and K-pop, and now it's not just K-pop, it's K-dramas, also beauty, and now everyone is trying to go to South Korea. So let's talk about Hollywood. Hollywood, it's the greatest engine of American soft power. They project their view as the universal view. Even when we, at least in Latin America, when we study about Cold War, about the world wars, we always see, or we always study the side of America. And through Hollywood, we also learn about it. For example, Captain America. Who here watch the MC universe? What do you like about the MC universe?
Its complexity and how its messages are sometimes, not always, sometimes very, very complex as well. But in the meantime, it's very reliable. I mean, you can feel like the characters. You can understand their motives.
Okay.
That's what I think is great about it.
And you?
I would say the same. I also like it because I want to say sometimes they try to make the character more human, and they are also superheroes, but they have human features, so you can understand them.
Okay, and if I ask about the DC universe, someone here watch you? Okay.
Well, it has a much more darker tone sometimes, and in comparison, I think DC is much more grounded to reality. But so it's more realistic, but the MCU is more optimistic, I would say.
Okay.
And this difference I think, is very detectable when you compare these two universes.
Okay, and through the arcs of these characters from these heroes, we can see how United States want to impose their culture, and that's what we call cultural hegemony. For example, American or so-called American values, like individualism, skepticism from the government, even from their own government. Remember Captain America in the... I always forget about the names of the movies. I think it's the Sokovian Agreements, where he go rogue and against the government because he doesn't want to follow what the government wants them to follow. They have like a moral clarity about how just an individual can save the world. Another example, maybe it's more vintage for you, for us not that much. Rocky, have you seen Rocky? No? No one? Well, he is a box player, and he comes from a really, really humble and class, And he has this dream to become the world famous box fighter in United States. The movie is in the Cold War ages, and what do you think his main enemy is, or from where the enemy comes?
From Russia?
Yes, his enemy is called Draco. He comes from Russia, and you can see really clearly, like, he comes from poverty. He's humble. He trains in the streets or in the beach, while Draco, the character from Russia, has all the machinery needed and more to become the champion of the world. But at the end, Rocky wins the championship. And again, we can see here in this, I recommend that movie. There's like 3 or 4 movies from him. And then there's a sequel from, I don't know if is his son or no, the son of his main best friend. And I recommend that movies. Again, I forgot what I was saying. Okay, so what you will see is how these American values are inserted in these kind of movies, and how if you work hard and you do what you have to do, you will become the champion and you will follow and achieve your dreams. Then we have the counterpart. We have China, that instead of thinking about individualism and how you by your own merit could solve the problems and could save the world, they has this movie that's called Wandering Earth. And in this movie, what they are trying to say is that through cooperation, we can solve the problems. It's not the American way or the cold American way, but a multicultural way. Obviously, they are led by China, so it's like a face-washing form of reivindicate or change the idea that China is the new Russia or the new enemy from the United States. And this is how we use sharp power in order to understand how there are other ways and how China is trying to impose these values to the people, to us, that maybe we are not working in politics, or we think that what happens in the political arena doesn't affect us. And then we have the Hallyu wave. I think that this part is more like common for you. Do you like BTS, Blackpink, or any other of these groups? Someone here is really, really fan? No? Well, in my country, my students are really fans of, yeah, I know, not you, Maria Cristina, but most of my students, they like their skincare, they like how they dress, and they try to imitate how these groups function. So it's a prime example of organically grown soft power. We have, first, how these groups work. They train for a lot of time. They compete with other groups, with other individuals to have the chance to become part of a group, and this process is not from a private community, it is imposed by the government, because the government understands that if they want to have a place in a place worldwide, they need to export something and to export their culture. That's the reason why in Japan or in China you don't have K-pop. If they want to enter to those countries, they create their own groups. So the culture and the values of South Korea doesn't change the values of the Chinese and Japanese youth. Then we have the K-dramas. Someone have seen K-dramas? No? Well, K-dramas has high emotional stakes, they mix a lot of genres and formats, and have cinematic quality. Something that the videos of the K-pop groups and singers also have. And one fun fact about it is that while in the United States, the different companies that manage the artists were competing against piracy, the BTS, Blackpink, and all these groups decide to present for free their music in YouTube. And that's why worldwide many people decide to follow because they know these groups. So in K-dramas, these are seen and reproduced over and over again. In Ecuador, in national television, in different ones, in different channels from national television, they always pass this one that's called A Stairway to Heaven. And all moms, all grandmas, and young people that have seen this K-drama at least once or know what we are talking about. And it's this tale of this little girl that was separated from her family and how she finds her true love, but she has to pass through a lot of situations, even to lose her sight in order to find her true love. And then you have K-films that recently, have you seen Parasite? Yes? Recently has become like, we have global awareness of these type of movies that are challenging or criticizing things about what the American view or Hollywood try to impose to us, like capitalism and how social classes should be and how you should work. And what's the engine behind this wave? We have the government support. The government after 1997 decided to really invest in these groups and in these areas. Then they are technological savvy. They, as I already told, instead of fighting piracy, they decide to use really good quality and present it for free to the world. And then you have hyper-engaged fandoms. For example, in Ecuador, you will see groups in Facebook, in Instagram, in TikTok, that talk and decide to go to a sport to listen and to dance to the new videos that one of these groups are presenting. Also, the group machinery will maintain communication with the fans, and that's one of the reasons that BTS was present in the United Nations, showing that not just politicians and diplomats go to the United Nations and can make a change, but also these kind of groups, and they become like these topics that maybe are really, really far away for the youth population now are more closer thanks to BTS in these political stages. Ooh. I'm sorry. Then we're going to talk about music. Music as a way of resistance. It's a tool for counter-hegemony because we have seen like top-down pop geopolitics, how the government, how the big corporations are trying to impose some values, some views to the people. But now we have the other side. And it's to give voice to the global south to fight back against the dominant narrative. And we have Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny starts as one of millions or one of many reggaeton or trapper singers that want to have it shot and become famous. But the difference between those other singers is that he was clear that he will try to reivindicate his country, Puerto Rico. And he tried to center through his music, through his appearances in different places, like today's show with Jimmy Fallon, Saturday Night Live, where he always goes. What are the struggles of Puerto Rico? What are the struggles of Latin America? And what we should advocate. We're going to talk about 3 specific situations where he presents this view. First, it's the Ricky Renuncia protest. I don't know if you know, but in 2019, there was a massive leakage of information from the government, from the governor and his crew, from the governor of Puerto Rico, that after an earthquake in the island, and when people saw and listened to these conversations where the governor was joking around, making fun of the struggles the population was facing, a protest started. And not just Bad Bunny, but other singers from the island came. Bad Bunny, in that case, canceled his Europe tour and came back to Puerto Rico to lead the protest. Also, Ricky Martin, that he lived right now in the United States, and Residente, I don't know if you know him, or if you know Calle 13. No, a little bit. Calle 13 starts like in the early 2000s with trying to open the space for reggaeton or for protest music in a savvy way or in a new way. But then he became more vocal about his belief and his political belief. So in this Ricky Renuncia protest, Bad Bunny with Residente create a song specifically for the protest, and this become like the anthem of the protest. This song, if you wanna listen to it, it's called Alcemos los cuchillos. Afinando los cuchillos. That means sharpening the knife. So in this way, it was a raw protest or raw visceral protest track that in Puerto Rican slang it's called tiradera or diss track, where people or Puerto Rican singers try to use this. It's like these rap versions where you fight between rappers, something like that. And in this song, they use the messages leaked by the governor. They put names, listed all the grievances, all the problems, like the gentrification, the rage of the people, and become the anthem of the protest. How Ricky Renuncia was a turning point because it demonstrated the power of the people. How through the Bad Bunny, and the other singers, a new form of power was created in Puerto Rico and was based on cultural influence and social media, because while Bad Bunny was returning from Europe to Puerto Rico, he used his social media to express and to inform to the world what was happening in Puerto Rico. And that led to media outlets, to new outlets, to go to Puerto Rico and inform what was really happening, when if this didn't happen, if these singers don't talk in their social media about what was happening, maybe the rest of the United States and the rest of the world wouldn't know what happened there. Then it gives global visibility and solidifies Bad Bunny's role in the transformation of Puerto Rico. The pressure was so immense and unrelenting that on July 24 of 1921, Ricardo Rossello, the government, announced his resignation, and this was viewed as a historic victory for the movement in Puerto Rico. Have you seen the video of El Apagón, or have you listened El Apagón? Listen?
I think
Okay.
once or twice, but it's not on my playlist.
Yeah, don't worry, it's really long. It's like 23 minutes, the video. Why? Because he used this particular song to show to the world and to make a protest about the gentrification and the problems with the privatization of electricity. In some of his interviews, he says that he lived as the Puerto Ricans. He faces the apagones or the electricity shortages that are really common in Puerto Rico, and he works with someone with a reporter to explain, like in a documentary, what was happening in Puerto Rico. So while you are hearing the song, you see interviews, you see part of the protests that are in that moment in Puerto Rico. Then we have the recent residency in Puerto Rico that was called Debí Tirar Más Fotos as his album. And why he decided to create this residency and not make or start this residency instead of a world tour. Why do you think that he does that?
Just advice.
Okay, in the case of United States, it's because of ICE. He decided that he will not create a tour for United States because he wants to protect his fandom, his people, because most of the Latin Americans, or a big part of the Latin American population that live in the States, lives there in an irregular way. Reason why, and through what's happening with MAGA and the big ICE power that now ICE have, it would be to put them in danger. Also, Puerto Rico is like a semi-colonized island in the state. Even though Puerto Rico is part of the United States, it does not function as like the traditional states in the country. So there's a lot of poverty. There's people, just like this meme that maybe you have seen from the Kardashians, like Kim, people is dying. That happens also in Puerto Rico. People they're losing their houses because there's a law that wants to privatize or make more expensive for people from the states with a lot of money, and the native people of Puerto Rico are really, really in a bad place or are really suffering. So he decides to create his residency in the country, so their fans or people that like his music will go to Puerto Rico and create money or give money to the country and help the country and their people to have better options. And with this action, what he did was to center the periphery in the global stage, because people from different parts of the world go to Puerto Rico, stay in their hotels. They don't go just to the concert. They go to their beaches. They consume their food, and their culture. So then also he talks about how the country lacks of sovereignty and the consequences of this relationship with United States. Also, he creates a linguistic assertion. Why? Because he has been very vocal that if you want to hear him, you should learn Spanish. He's not going to create music or create something in English because you should learn Spanish if you want to hear him and love what he does. Yes?
There is a movement with Duolingo, with Bad Bunny, and I don't know if it's real, but they give out free Duolingo subscriptions to people who want to learn Spanish because they want to attend the Super Bowl, and yeah, they made a deal with Bad Bunny and Duolingo to make a free subscription, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but it's really interesting because then that leads me to the third point, that is the Super Bowl, the halftime show of the Super Bowl, because he said that you should learn Spanish if you want to see him in the Super Bowl. And he used music as a direct political protest. We already talked about the Apagón, we already talked about the Rica Renuncia protest, and his extended residency where he really takes the capital. It's like a cultural diplomacy where the periphery becomes the center. He forced cultural immersion to the Spanish and to the Puerto Rican culture. And now we have to talk about the Super Bowl. This decision of making Bad Bunny the show start of the halftime show, it's a challenge to the MAGA narrative. Why? Because it will redefine what is to be American, what is to be part of a citizen of the United States, where this MAGA narrative, it's about conservative people, proud conservative white people that maybe they are really religious, from a really religious type, and this is the most shown event in the year. So that a non-English singer will be the center of the show is a real challenge to this narrative. And as you said, there's a lot of people from the movement that are rejecting that he will be there. Some of them are talking to create a parallel event where a real American will be performing. They say that ICE will be there, and also that they should ask a visa for Puerto Ricans and why a non-American is performing in the show. But Puerto Rico is part of the United States, so Bad Bunny is an American citizen. We already talked about this. And just to finish with this part of Bad Bunny, we could conclude that the selection of Bad Bunny by the NFL and its corporate sponsors would represent that status quo, acknowledging an undeniable reality that the demographics and cultural center of the United States has shifted. It's not this Americans, white, conservative people, but it's different. It's multicultural. And also, he challenges the cultural norms. He fights against machismo, he confronts machismo, for example, with his song Yo Perreo Sola, that means I dance alone. Like, perreo is like specific for reggaeton music, but basically is I dance alone. And in the video, if you check it, is Bad Bunny in woman clothes, talking about how this girl is dancing alone and she doesn't need a man to be happy, and he challenges these traditional roles that are assigned to women. he used his stage to promote messages of gender fluidity and LGBT inclusivity to a massive, often socially conservative audience. Then, I don't know what happened here.
Same thing again. Is that Mac?
No, it's Debbie.
Does it have the port?
I have. Yeah?
I'll show you.
Okay.
Just let me see.
Thank you. For example, he protests against transphobia in the Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. He wore a shirt that says "Mataron a Alexa, no a un hombre con falda." That means they kill Alexa, not a man in a skirt. Because it was in a protest of the murder of Alexa Negrón Luciano, a transgender woman in Puerto Rico. He used his largest platform in American television, that is the Jimmy Fallon Show, to force a conversation about transphobia in the Caribbean. So with his popularity, with his music, with his performances, he became the most influential global representative of Puerto Rico. He exported their culture, the music, the slang, and their political concerns to every corner of the planet. For example, in Debí Tirar Más Fotos album, he has a specific song about colonization that's called No Quiero Que Te Pase Lo Que Le Pasó a Hawaii, that it refers to the story of colonization of Hawaii and how he doesn't want to repeat the story with Puerto Rico. In conclusion, Bad Bunny is one of the most sophisticated and effective practitioners of pop geopolitics from the global south. Then we have another or other types of singers that also are roots and global voices from pop geopolitics. We can talk about Fela Kuti from Afrobeat. He was like the one who started Afrobeat, and through his music, he was really confrontational about the totalitarian state of his country. He lived in the 70s in the post-colonial Nigeria, where the corruption was at his peak, and the oppression also was a specific target to Fela's music. And where we can find this pop geopolitics in his work. First, he used his music, that is a fusion of fuzz, jazz, funk, and traditional Yoruba rhythms, to designate to make his listeners to be like in a trance state, where it will be more receptive to the political charged lyrics that follows his music. Also, he created specific songs against the regime, like Zombie. In Zombie, he attacked the Nigerian military, campaigning soldiers and saying that they were robots who follow orders without questions. And finally, the Calacuta Republic. He decided that his commune will be free from the Nigerian regime, and this led to a revolution or a fight with the military of Nigeria, and it ends with his mother dead, but it was a political statement that he wants Nigeria to be free. So he became the symbol of resistance in the country, and he, through his music and then the ones who follow him, they make global the struggle of Nigeria. And then you have another type of music that it's also maybe reggaeton, maybe pop, that is Shakira. Did you know about Shakira? Yes. and Karol G. Did you know about Karol G? Okay, what they want to say or they want to try to explain is about female empowerment and challenge the music industry, how what women sing and what women do is not just about heartbreaks and how to follow a man, but how every one of us have like their way of living and it can be free. For example, Karol G used the word bichota that normally it would represent like a narco related word, and she changed the meaning of the word, and she says, and I think it was to Jimmy Fallon in an interview, that she says bichota is this girl that she could do everything she wants, that she can achieve her dreams, and she doesn't need a man. And then you have Shakira, for example, after her breakup with her ex-husband, the Visa Rap Session 53, where she also talked about female empowerment when she said that women now cash in instead of cry. So then they decided to make a song together. So through this collaboration, they advocate for female empowerment and create a narrative of female solidarity, turning their personal breakups in a universal statement of self-worth in a dominated male world. So through these people, we can see how the modern Latina identity is created and is spread across the world, how they challenge machismo from within, because reggaeton is traditionally a male space and a space where girls are objectified. And they use soft power with a gendered perspective. And then we have Residente. Residente is this singer that I already talked you about, that he fought with Bad Bunny in the Ricky Renuncia protest. But he thinks he's a lyrical journalist and a pan-Latin American intellectual because he has a method to write his music. For example, he made a DNA test, and after this test from where his ancestors come, he decided to visit these places, and after that he creates a song about it. He used his music as a medium for deep research commentary of the shared history, culture, and struggles from Latin America. He has this masterpiece called Latin America, where he exemplified this approach by weaving together historical references and collaborations with iconic artists of different places or different countries of Latin America. Songs, for example, in this song, he said, "Soy la fotografía de un desaparecido," which means I am the photograph of a disappeared person, relating it or referring to the dictatorships in Argentina and Chile. Or "Soy la altura que sofoca," which means I'm the suffocating altitude from the Andes. And with this song, what he tries to say is that he tries to unify a voice for Latin America, because we in Latin America sometimes work from different angles, not in a community, and create this great homeland. And his songs or his videos educate his global audiences on complex issues like conflict and migration. And some people, I don't agree, but some people call him like a political philosopher from popular culture. So, just a little break, and can you think of an artist or song that changed your perspective or political views on a social issue? A movie, maybe, a book that you read. Both of you.
Maybe the last year Super Bowl show, halftime show from December.
Why?
There was also about the US, and I don't remember the actor's name, but he was in many films.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of old, and he also talked during the halftime shows, and I think it was interesting.
Perfect. Yeah, he tries to reivindicate what means to be black in United States. You?
I was thinking about Kali Uchez's Isolation album, basically about her, from her childhood to her adolescent years. She was born in Colombia and she had to experience a lot of suffering. Her family battled with like financial problems, and one of her songs discovers how girls from such an early age in Colombia are put on the street to become a prostitute, so they have the money to feed their family for the day or for the week, and how she escaped this, or how is it possible that she escaped from this situation, and how she basically became like a kind of self-made star from India.
Perfect. Somebody else?
Well, I'm from Brazil, so we are really different from other parts of Latin America. But a movie that recently won an Oscar, which is I'm Still Here, Ainda Estou Aqui, didn't really change my perspective on political issues in Brazil, because this is pretty much something that we absolutely hate. But the movie talks about the military dictatorship in Brazil during the 60s, and in a very disturbing period in Brazil politics because of Bolsonaro and this whole mass of people are going to streets and asking Trump to invade Brazil and save Brazil and everything. And this actually makes explicit how Americanized is our society. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's true. Nowadays we are talking about like the same but with Venezuela and how Trump should save Venezuela from Maduro. And I don't know if you use Twitter, but well, X, but in my feed there was like a big argument about if it was right that Maria Corina Machado won the Nobel Prize and why the Nobel Prize should go to Trump instead of Maria Corina, and what he should do in order to take out the dictatorship of Maduro. Well, let's go to streaming platforms. Here we have the tension between globalization, that maybe through Netflix we can have it because now everyone at the same time can see or can watch the same series or the same movie, but also globalization, that's talk about local productions. For example, La Casa de Papel or Money Heist is a global protest symbol. For example, did you see Money Heist? Yes? Over there? Or do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe? This series is one of the most awarded and most popular from Netflix, and even though it talks about like a specific problem or struggle from Spain, many of us or many countries or many groups, they feel identified with the same struggles, the corruption, what happens with capitalism and how maybe capitalism is not the best way to obtain results for society. So it creates a shared global culture of dissident. How can we protest? And the mask, the Dali mask, they use what nowadays is used in different countries, in different protests around the world. As I said, globalization is this strategy of adapting global products to fit to the local culture and tastes. And Netflix does that. We have productions from Turkey, from Spain, from Latin America. Recently, they produced part of a series of 100 Years of Solitude from Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Now they are producing, or I think they are very finished, like Water for Chocolate, also from Latin America, specifically from Mexico, that represents the struggle of a family in the Mexican Revolution. And through Netflix or through these streaming platforms, we can see what happens in other countries and the culture of other countries. And we could say that this is positive, but also these have some problems. For example, Narcos. Have you seen Narcos? The series, yes? No? Did you know what I'm talking about? Yeah? This series represents what happens in Colombia with Pablo Escobar, one of their biggest narco in their history. But the problem was that the main actor, the one that represents Pablo, or impersonates Pablo, was a native English speaker. So instead of talking like a real Colombian, he talks like an American that is learning Spanish. And this generates a lot of critics about what you want to portray, as if you are trying to really represent what happened in that place or that story, but also it reinforces the stereotypes of the country that it can be defined just by cocaine, cartels, violence, instead of sharing the rich culture, art, innovation, and the deep trauma that Colombian people face during this period of time. So we have to ask ourselves who has the right to tell a story and for whom that story is being told, in order to analyze what we are seeing, what we are watching in the streaming platforms. Then we have video games and their narrative. We could talk about Call of Duty, that is an interactive system of the military entertainment complex, where when you are playing Call of Duty, you have to kill so many people and understand how the military machinery and industry in the States works. And many of us, we could say that this represents what is to be American, and we can talk like for hours about what's the problem with the gun violence in United States. But then you have the counter narrative in video games that tries to flip the script with games like The War of Mine, where instead of being a military and represent the story of a military and how you have to win the war while killing so many people, it is the story from a civilian perspective where groups of people try to find food and try to be free from the war, or escape from the war. So again, we should ask ourselves, whose stories get told? What story are we seeing? What story are we listening? And why this story is people from the Netflix or Hulu or whatever decide to tell that story and not other stories. And then we have social media, that is the new frontline. memes are used nowadays as political cartoons, maybe because it is easier to go or to become worldwide in seconds and to pass the borders of or the limits of the governments. Why? Because maybe they don't understand what I don't know what the face of Winnie Pooh is doing, and while we are sharing an image of Winnie Pooh, and it looks like something like irrelevant, but instead it has a political intent. Also, it has a coded language of irony. Let's think about the Hong Kong protest, where protesters use images of Pepe the Frog as a symbol of their pro-democracy movement. They use Winnie Pooh, as I already told, to mock Chinese President Xi Jinping as a reference that is heavily censored in mainland China. And these memes serve as an encrypted communication to organize and build solidarity while simultaneously undermining the authority of the state. Now we have TikTok that we could see through the algorithm, I don't know, someone dancing, and yeah, they are dancing in the background, but then you have a text where they are telling or something about what is happening in the country, or against Trump, against the president of their country, or the governor, or any political leader. So they use the algorithm as a weapon, because in your For You page, you will have this TikTok that is expected to go, but instead of people dancing or I don't know, a specific song or a specific trend, you have a political campaign in action. And then we have sports and politics. We have here two tendencies: the sport washing, and we can talk about the Qatar World Cup, where Qatar tried to use this global event to distract people from the criticism against the government and against what was happening in Qatar. And yeah, we could say that he accomplished that, because we already know that in Qatar there's a lot of stuff more, and it's more cultural diverse, but also the critics against how he treats his people, how they are treating their people, also face and goes to different social medias. And also you have global icons as symbol of globalization, like Messi, that he represents not just Argentina, he represents Spain, he represents United States, for example, through his new football team, and he also has this story of a self-made person. And then we have the Global South dystopias that critiques neo-colonialism and global indifference from the periphery. In Brazil, they produce Baccarat, that is this story of a little town in Brazil that people go there to kill other people, as you go to Africa for a safari. And the story ends when and also it is important that this town, you can find it in the maps. It's just like a tourist innovation thing. And the story ends where the people from Baccarat decide to use the weapons that were in the museum from their history to protest and try to be free. So in these documents, you can see how from the Global South you also have ways to obtain freedom and what are the struggles in the Global South. So because I think we are just finishing We have the pop geopolitical playbook, where these things that we have talked, sports, music, video games, streaming platforms, they are not separate things. They are part of an integrated strategy. Because the next frontier is already here. We could talk in another lecture maybe about AI and how with artificial intelligence new content is created and can change the perspective or can create fake news about what we are talking about. For example, we already have a virtual influencer created by AI that is Lil Michaela. And nowadays people are talking, and the debate is if we should accept these kind of influencers or actors in our society. And how the algorithm optimize cultural products that blur the line between what's real and what's not real, what is good and what is not good. And the message that the countries or the people in charge want to show you and want you to believe. So, what's next? Controlling the narrative, it is important as controlling territory, because if for example, in my country, right now there is a protest between the indigenous people and the government, and Ecuador is really, really polarized, and you have these two big narratives, the one of the people that want a change, that want their rights to be respected, versus the narrative of our president that says they are terrorists and he's not going to change what he already decided. And nowadays we have 22 days of protest where a lot of violence from the government. But many people say, because most of the media is aligned to our president, that it is necessary because we need to create more. We need to create more. I forgot the word. I'm sorry. More money for other areas like medicine and education, but he is not invested in medicine and education. And while the places where the protests are being held, he sends a lot of our military, but in the places where the violence and the narcos are really working, we don't have military there. But again, the media that is most partialized through the government, they try to explain to the population that this is the only way to be safe and to become a better Ecuador. We should ask ourselves, does pop culture primarily reflects geopolitical reality, or does it distort it? Also, think about what you consume daily. What political message do you see, and who benefits from those political messages? And if a global platform like Netflix and TikTok can be truly neutral. So, questions?
Thank you so much. And we have 8 minutes for questions. So questions that are straight to the point are more than welcome.
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
So how about in internal Ecuadorian politics? So you showed us briefly like these two sides, let's say, two narratives. So are they using songs, referencing films and series? So how does it in internal politics? Because we saw it from the more macro global level, but inside Ecuador are these stars?
Inside Ecuador they're not using like music per se, because it really portrays like the struggle of our indigenous people, and they have their ways. So you are going to see them with their ponchos and their traditional costumes, but the government tries to use influencers. The first lady, before becoming first lady, she was an influencer, so she is one of the main strategies of the government to maintain his narrative and how good they are, because in Ecuador you don't have by law the role of a first lady, so she doesn't have in theory money to do whatever she wants to do, but she creates a foundation that is called Proyecto Ana, and through their social media she creates courses and tries to empower women and how good is our government.
Well, thanks.
Well, I have a question too. Regarding sort of like BTS and Bad Bunny, they are both seen as sort of like their country's main cultural exports ambassadors. BTS themselves participated in the UN, they have multiple times. Bad Bunny doesn't have quite a political per se career, but he's been involved in his country's protests. He has been very outspoken about his local political views. But they are like, they're similar, but given their cultural context, they're so different. So my question is more like, they have different ways of doing politics, but could we say that they are both valuable, considering that Bad Bunny is a more outspoken person, and BTS is more like, they tend to be really quiet about their own political views?
Yeah, because BTS is managed or sponsored by the government. So what they do is talk about what the government wants them to talk and to share some values. For example, I remember like 2 years ago, I think, that there was all the media were talking about how they are going to their military enlistment and how they should be proud, and all South Koreans should be proud and do the same. So what maybe BTS is a top-down pop geopolitics way, while Bad Bunny comes from the grassroots. It would be like bottom up.
Thank you.
Yes?
Not exactly about the South. There's this Eurovision thing where European countries and singers contest. And do you think it's something similar? Because there were like some bannings or not letting some contestants through the whole competition, about if some of these singers, maybe in disguise, want to send a message, a political message. Do you think there is a connection or something?
Well, the connection is that there is an intent to present some values or to present this political view, but sometimes or generally, like European singers are more spread worldwide, so they can do it. If they decide to do it, they can do it like behind the curtains. While from Latin America, that we come from this struggle from colonization, like we tend to be more vocal about it.
Yeah.
I have a question. What do you think about the role of the influencers in influence political views, and what are the trends for the future in this sense? Because we have seen that the world is becoming more and more polarized, and now we have seen these influencers having a big role in society. I can say about my country, in which they are very into politics, they are becoming politicians, and this is really dangerous, I would say. So.
Well, in Ecuador, we have a long-lasting tradition of singers and models and beauty queens becoming congresswomen and congressmen. But yeah, it is complicated because, as you said, well, people that does not understand what is happening, what are politics about, can create a narrative that would be a problem for the people, for the society. And this is also an strategy that the political parties will use these influencers in order to obtain what they want.
Thank you so much. I think that time is up, so thank you once again, Andrea, for being here with us, and thank you for everybody for coming, and an applause.